Hello everybody, I am Jmulls of Jmulls Gaming, and all the tanks are leveled. My new role has been picked. I'm going tank in Dawntrail, and I think it's time to rank them. Now bear in mind, this is simply based on what I find most enjoyable, what I like, what I want out of the game. So let's go over all the tanks, how I feel about them in comparison to one another, what I think each does better or worse compared to each other, what I really enjoy about them, what I think can be better. Let's get into it right now, and we're gonna start out with the worst, the bottom of the barrel, the only tank, funnily enough, that I don't enjoy in Dawntrail, and that's Dark Knight. I'm not saying this is a surprise pick, because it isn't. A lot of people have talked about the state of Dark Knight in Dawntrail. I think it's really rough. And it's the only tank I actively don't want to play right now. It simply is. With tank homogenization being as big of a thing as it is right now, with Dark Knight being no exception to that, the problem Dark Knight has is that the little differences that it does have doesn't make it feel unique, it just makes it feel like a worse version of what every other tank has. I'll take Hadakarundam, Holy Sheltron, Bloodwedding any day of the week over TBN. And the mitigation that Dark Knight does bring to the table just feels far too nuanced and niche compared to what every other tank has. And I don't think a fun or enjoyable form of job identity or flavor is that at your best, you are what the other tanks do at their worst. Even if the numbers don't match to that, that's how it feels to me. It can be weirdly slow. The MP generation just isn't there, and they incorporated Blood Weapon into Delirium, but it just feels as if they forgot to balance or did a poor job at balancing the MP generation the job has in Dawntrail. Even in terms of rhythm, if I want a more stable, slow-paced job, Paladin exists. Heck, even Warrior. And when Dark Knight tries to be really fast in things like Blood Weapon or whatever, Delirium, if I want that really fast-paced gameplay, Gunbreaker exists, and it does it better in my opinion, in a more meaningful, enjoyable way. There's just no aspect of Dark Knight besides the visual, besides the aesthetic, which is my favorite in the game, which is why this kind of annoys me more than any other job in the game, with Dark Knight being the job in this position. I love its job quest, I love its aesthetics, I love the animations are mostly fine. I think they look a bit too clunky here and there. It just doesn't play well. It's not particularly fun or enjoyable. At times it just feels too spammy for the sake of being spammy, and at other times it feels far too slow, just for the sake of being slow. It's the only tank in my opinion that I genuinely believe needs a complete rework, like from the ground up, because I don't think this works. I don't think this should be the direction of Dark Knight. Over time, the other tanks have kind of incorporated elements from Dark Knight, so those elements no longer feel special on Dark Knight. It needs something new, it needs something unique, it needs a breath of fresh air. It needs creativity, it needs innovation, it needs something. Now, having said that, let's move on to number 3. And despite being number 3, I need to make this abundantly clear. The difference between 3 and 1 for me is smaller than the difference between 3 and 4. There's a big gap between Dark Knight and, for me, Warrior. Warrior, I can easily see being a lot of other people's favorite tank, and I can completely understand why, because I think Warrior is arguably in one of the best positions it's ever been in. To me, it used to be way too slow, and still a little bit is, but the tweaks and the little touches, the love it's gotten over the last couple of expansions especially, have done so much good for Warrior. It feels meaty and visceral. You have a giant axe, and you just sunder the very ground you walk on. It's great. And I like every element of Warrior. The only reason it clocks in at number 3 is because there's another job who I prefer offensively and another job I greatly prefer defensively. I think in terms of being an all-rounder, Warrior could arguably be number 1 for me, but it's just I really enjoy Gunbreaker and Paladin so much, and we'll get into the order for those two in a minute, that just more often than not, I'm going to want to play those jobs. Though in Dungeon, Warrior is so much fun with Bloodwedding and all the self-healing that it has. and the animations on Warrior are absolute chef's kiss. I just think on occasion Warrior can be a bit too slow, and I still do not like Storm's Eye. I don't like just having to keep up a buff. I never really particularly have. It doesn't feel impactful, doesn't make my gameplay feel more fresh or enjoyable. It's just a raw damage number increase. I don't think that's particularly entertaining. Personally, I'm not as high on Fellcleave as some others are, but I don't have a big history with Warrior as other Warrior mains do. This may sound like nitpicks, but again, I greatly enjoy Warrior, Paladin, and Gunbreaker, so to properly rank these for me in terms of my enjoyability with these jobs, I kind of have to nitpick here. What would I like to see change with Warrior? And honestly, it's not that much, because there's nothing really that I think needs to be changed about Warrior. It's just that it targets a different type of tanking preference than me, and that's fine. I don't want to enjoy every job in the game, because I want jobs to have their own separate variety and their own targeted audiences. I think Warrior and all the tanks is going to be a blanket statement for all the tanks. They need more individuality, more uniqueness. That's not just like Dark Knight's definition, which is we're going to do what the other tanks do, but in a really niche condition, and even then be kind of okay at it. Personally, I would like to see Storm's Eye removed and something else to replace it that's more mechanically intensive or engaging. Something that changes the buttons I press. I would find that more enjoyable and more fun. This goes for all the tanks because not every tank does this, and it's kind of like Warrior in this regard. Okay, for abilities like Bloodwetting and Holy Sheltron, do we have to have a separate button to press to apply it to the off tank? Does it have to be a separate button? I don't get this. I haven't gotten this. It doesn't make sense to me. I don't get why we do this. It's just an extra keybind that does not need to be there. It doesn't make the game more mechanically intense or enjoyable. It's just weird design in my opinion. And I can understand why Warrior doesn't have the main combo change with each button press like Viper does, because it branches to either Storm's Eye or your main one. For the other tanks though, can we just have that one button change please? For like a 1, 2, 3? When there's not a branching combo there and it's just 1, 2, 3, can we have the option like we do for certain other abilities to have that ability like transform? I would personally like that. Okay, however, let's move on to number 2. Dose. Yeah? Do. My second favorite tank in the game. And funnily enough, there's not going to be a lot of, suspense for number 1 because process of elimination. So, my second favorite tank is Gunbreaker. My number 1 is Paladin. Let's talk about Gunbreaker. I love this thing offensively so much. It is my favorite tank in the game when it comes down to just DPSing something. I love, love, love continuation. Please give it a little bit more range. However, I love continuation. I like pressing a lot of buttons. I like having a bunch of OG CDs. I love continuation as a concept, and with Dawntrail and Endwalker, they are just like, hey, what if we gave you even more continuation? And you know what? Thumbs up from me, give me more. I'll take 12 of them. It's fast-paced, it's enjoyable, it's great fun. My only issue, and the reason it's in number 2 and not number 1, is defensively, I think it's kind of bland. It gets the job done, don't get me wrong. It just feels like defense and mitigation is not nearly as cool as it is offensively. Gunbreaker feels like a DPS job that can happen to tank, whereas for me, Paladin, through and through, feels like a tank. I will say Gunbreaker gets some bonus points for Superbolide, because I love that ability so much. It's so fun trolling healers with that thing in dungeons or trials and raids. Oh my god, it never not brings a smile to my face. Am I toxic? Possibly. However, it's the little things that bring you joy, Look, if healers can grip me to whatever location they dang well please, I can at least raise their heart rate a little bit. Full Metal Alchemist, equivalent exchange, Now Paladin. I love this thing. I love Paladin so much. I love it more every time I play it. I love the glamour. I love the animations. I love the fact that its main burst window is just, let's chuck a bunch of swords at the enemy and have swords like come out of the very ground and explode from the enemy. It's great. I love that. Imperator looks so much better than Requiescat, and whoever is the genius that gave Imperator range capabilities, I love you. It's so good. Every time I come up to a situation on Paladin, I feel as if I have an answer to it. I love being able to double as like a ranged tank, because why not? It's so fun, just having that ability to do so. Especially in bosses and fights where the movement can get kinda hectic. I can just peace out and run a little bit farther away while the boss is doing like 20 different AoEs within the boss arena, and I can still hit the thing. It's great. I love it. It's a little bit slow on occasion, don't get me wrong. There's not too many OG CDs when it comes to Paladin. However, I love the defensive capabilities that Paladin brings to the table so much. I love having clemency. I love having that heal just available when I need it. If I see a healer dies and a DPS or someone needs a quick heal, I can contribute in that regard. I can throw a holy shell on. Actually, it's... Okay, I don't care. You know what I mean. I can support the group a lot of the time. And whenever I manage to pull that off, it feels good. And it makes me happy to be on Paladin when that happens. Also, side note, the glamour. I tend to find that Paladin always has the best looking relics, at least to me. Because it's really hard to mess up a sword and shield that just glows. You know, like, it's really hard to mess this core concept up. I'm getting my animal weapon soon. I'm just farming A9 Savage right now solo. But I'm salivating. Yeah, I'm frothing at the mouth. I'm becoming feral for these weapons. The amount of grinding I have ahead of me will be written down and sung about. But I'm willing to do it. I'm willing to put in the work. My only real complaint with Paladin is that for some reason its gap closer still does potency. Why? I'm not too offended by it, but I'm just saying, why? Is it just to give Paladin an OG CD to use? And also, I think the animations for Holy Spirit and Holy Circle are kinda lame. My opinion, just fully lean into Unlimited Blade Works. Replace Holy Circle and Holy Spirit with actually summoning, like, golden swords above me, and I throw them at the enemy. Think of, like, Carrion Phalanx from Elden Ring or something like that. Now, if they did that at 8.0, dude, oh, you would hear me moan from space. And I want to take a bit of time to talk about tank homogenization, because I definitely feel it, especially after leveling all the tanks back to back to back. For the most part, all the tanks just kind of felt like, oh, this is the warrior version of this is the paladin version of this, etc, etc. There's a little bit of variance there, and I'm not going to try and act like some people do, that I think tanks are just in a bad space overall. I don't. I think tanking on the whole, besides like Dark Knight, is in a really good place right now in Dawntrail. They're super fun. They all have like their own kind of little niches that I really appreciate each tank in, like Warrior in dungeons, Gunbreaker when it comes to like off tanking or just doing raw damage, and then Paladin overall. I just love it so much. Dark Knight needs a lot of love. It's the only tank I actively dislike right now, but I love the other three. And for me, tanking is the epitome right now of, it has its issues, and it has systemic issues, especially when it concerns like homogenization and oversimplification that we've seen over the years. Definitely agree. And I think these are problems worth addressing when it comes to 8.0 and any potential changes later on. I can understand why some people were upset about Paladin getting reworked to work into the 2-minute rotation that has become infamous in Final Fantasy XIV at this point back in Endwalker. I can understand where they're coming from, because it's even more homogenization. But I think if we're going to live in this homogenous world as of right now, I think Paladin plays really well in this 2-minute rotation. It's super fun, it's enjoyable. I love Gunbreaker, Warrior, and Paladin. I think it's okay to admit they have their issues. The role has its issues that should be addressed, but I also think they're in really good states right now. They're super fun. They have their own little micro-identity that I think they need to continue to lean into in the future when it comes to more changes. But on the whole, I'm really optimistic about the state of tanking right now. They're super fun. I love them. And it's actually the funny thing to me, because I was kind of pessimistic about job design on the whole. Not as much as a lot of other people, but I was a little bit. Overall, I'd say I was optimistic, but I wasn't enjoying hitting my buttons back when I was just DPSing. And I was playing the game far less back in Endwalker, and as I was leveling in Dawntrail with Viper, I wasn't enjoying the game as much as I have been lately as playing tank. Tanking right now has kind of like rejuvenated my love for the gameplay of Final Fantasy XIV, because it has its issues, but when 14 gets the gameplay right, good god does it get it right. Not perfect, but I still really enjoy it. And I think that's one of the hardest things to do on the internet nowadays, is so many people try and paint every issue as a binary. You either love it or you hate it, and you gotta act as if it's some kind of moral obligation to hate or love a thing. And in a lot of ways, it can feel as if nuance is dead. But I love the tanks right now, and they have their issues. And I think those issues could be addressed, and these tanks could be way more fun than they are right now. But still, I'm not going to try and pretend that I'm not having fun, or that I'm not enjoying these jobs. Heck, I enjoyed leveling Dark Knight. I did. Mainly because you give me a giant sword, and my mind's gonna melt and go, big swordy. At the end of the day, constructive feedback is one of the most important things that we can give right now, and that's what I try and do. Because at the end of the day, not every job is going to be designed for everybody, and that's kind of the main issue I have with homogenization on the whole, is because homogenization, either directly or indirectly, really only appeals to one overarching playstyle, and I want jobs to have different playstyles to appeal to different people. Because the jobs that appeal to me, hopefully, would really appeal to me, and I'm kind of thankful that the tanks right now, on the whole, really appeal to me. Paladin more so, because I think it doubles down on the feeling of being a tank. It embraces its mitigation, the way it defends itself, the way that it heals itself, the way it can support the party. Passage of Arms always feels good to press. And you know what? If you don't mind me, I think I'm gonna go play some Final Fantasy XIV. So, thank you all for tuning in. My pleasure for making the video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out and helps support future content, and I greatly appreciate it. Leave a comment down below with what tank you like playing the most in Dawntrail and why. You a warrior main, a Gunbreaker main, a Paladin main, or do you even like Dark Knight? Which is entirely fine to do, but let me know in the comments down below. Or what other job you've been really playing and enjoying in Dawntrail. I'd love to hear your thoughts and hear your opinions and hear your perspectives. Stay safe, have a great day. I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye, everybody. Until we meet again!